I'm Glenn Shore. I'm a long-time member of the Occupational Safety and Health section. And today I have the honor and privilege of introducing Steve Mantis from Thunder Bay, Ontario, who is the winner of the Leslie Nichols International Health and Safety Award for 2024. I've met Steve through weekly meetings of the Ontario network of injured workers groups that Steve helps start several years ago. So I want to immediately get into talking to Steve about how he got involved and why. So Steve, maybe you can tell us your story about why are you involved with this issue around injured workers, and how did you get involved? What was the genesis of your story?
Thanks, Glenn, and thanks so much too for the nomination and receiving this award. I'm just totally honored and humbled. In terms of my story, it was September 12th, 1978. I lost my left arm in an industrial accident. I've got about a couple inches left there. And that changed my life. I was hurt at work. I became permanently disabled. And I learned about the workers' compensation system in Ontario, Canada. And along the way, I was like at the top of the heap in terms of how the system treated me. There was no denying that I was actually hurt. There you could see it. I'm missing a limb. There's the natural sympathy and along with my background, where I read the Compensation Act while I've been laying in the hospital room, I knew what my rights were, and I got really the best treatment there was, and it was not bad. But most of the workers I met through my journey weren't so fortunate. Many workers were treated like they were cheaters, that they were scammers, that the system had to root out the bad ones. And that created real problems for workers. I thought, this is not how our public system is supposed to be. It's supposed to be there to help people when they become injured and disabled or ill. So we need to change the system so that it does the job it's supposed to do. And that's really started me on that journey. It was really 6 years later, 1984, that we started our first injured workers group here in Thunder Bay, the Thunder Bay and District Injured Workers Support Group. So we're now celebrating 40 years. And we've been involved really over that last 40 years as volunteers, helping each other and trying to make the system better for everybody.
So Steve, maybe you can talk to us a little bit. During these 40 years, you've organized groups that across Canada, from what I can see, that have taken on this issue as their own. And I just wonder, what have you learned? I know you've learned many things over the years, but what would you say are some of the takeaways of the organizing of injured workers in Canada, and what successes have you had and what challenges do you face?
Well, number one, in order to really understand what's going on with the system, you need to be able to understand what's happening to the people that it's supposed to serve. And that means engaging with them, talking to them, listening to them, mostly listening to them. And the voices of those workers are denied in our public sphere. There's no place there for us. And we feel that. Our injured workers have said, I feel invisible. I feel like I'm no longer there. Like I don't have my place in society anymore. And So making the personal struggle public is part of a process that can be healing both for the individual workers who feel like they've been denied all along the way in terms of their own integrity around their own experience, to be able to say, no, this is what really happened. And to be able to have it involved in the public discourse makes a huge difference. So we have seen the results of that individual support, the listening, validating people's experience, can move people into activism, where together we're standing up for our rights collectively, and we're fighting for a better world for all of us. And those things are really linked. The individual recovery and rehabilitation and social justice issues that are going to actually make the world a better place.
So, you've talked about how injured workers often feel invisible, or that they've disappeared, or they're just feeling left behind, and that the activism can really be, I think, as you've described it, a healing process for people. Can you talk a little bit about sort of, you are an inspiration, and the Ontario Network and the injured workers groups in Canada have been an inspiration to many of us in both in this section, but also across the country. And I just wonder, what can you tell us about what we should be doing? How can we make sure that injured workers and researchers, of which we are many, can be involved or should be involved?
We want to work in partnership with researchers. We need you as an ally. We need folks to document what actually happens to workers over the long term after they become injured and have a permanent impairment. We have in Canada 50,000 workers every year who have a serious injury that translates into a permanent impairment, permanent disability. So you multiply that times 10 for the States. So you probably have about 500,000 workers whose lives are now in limbo every year. And the research we have done here in Canada says you have a 50-50 chance of making it out of that hole that you fell into. Half of them are going to end up in poverty with mental health issues, chronic pain, oftentimes drug and alcohol dependencies. So we need you to help us tell our story. We need you to listen to us, to engage with us in a very deep way, so that you get to ask the right questions, so that you get to document in a scientific manner what's really going on, because the system doesn't want to see, employers don't want to see, governments don't want to see. We need to make them see. And by helping us amplify our voice, and by putting the data in there together, we can make a real difference in the lives of those workers, and really as our whole society, as we empower those voices, we have another impact in terms of prevention in the first place. And people get motivated to do prevention when they hear those stories, when they hear the actual results. So there's a number of areas where we can really win by working together. And that's the challenge. That's the challenge I make today. We've had success. We've been working at it for 25 years, linking with academics. And I'll do a quick pitch. Just wrote a book about how we did that. And it's available for under $10 US online. Who Killed Sir William? Yeah, so that's the challenge. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Steve. We appreciate your words, and we hope to follow in your footsteps in doing some of the work down here that you've been doing in Canada and across the world. So thank you.
Thank you so much.